site. We're very happy to have you. I'm Troy Bankhead. I am the Director of TechSite Europe, as well as the VP of Marketing for TechSite. And today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Bobbi Pritt, who is the Professor of Laboratory Medicine and Pathology at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. There she serves as the chair of the Division of Clinical Microbiology, as well as the medical director of the Clinical Parasitology Laboratory. And Dr. Pritt completed her medical training at the University of Vermont College of Medicine, and she followed that by residency in anatomic and clinical pathology. And after that, she completed a fellowship in medical microbiology at Mayo Clinic. She also holds a master's degree in medical parasitology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in England. Dr. Pritt's main areas of interest are medical parasitology, vector-borne diseases, infectious disease pathology, and medical education. She's published more than 220 manuscripts on these topics, as well as 4 books and 36 book chapters. And she shares her passion for medical parasitology in her internationally acclaimed parasite case blog, Creepy, Dreadful, Wonderful Parasites. In fact, on the screen, you can see the link to her blog, as well as on social media, and where she is Parasite Gal on Twitter. And so we're very pleased to have her today. Really quickly, I wanted to go over what you can expect today. I'll very briefly go over who TechSite is, and then I will turn the time over to Dr. Pritt, who will talk about the impact of AI, transitioning to AI, and she will give a real life experience from their implementation of the parasitology technology at Mayo Clinic. And then we'll end with a Q&A. Just a bit of housekeeping. You can use the chat feature to ask us questions during the webinar, and we will try and address those at the end. So really quickly, TechSite, as a company, we have 3 verticals. Human is our main vertical. They all use the same technology, which is convolutional neural networks in deep machine learning, which is a subset of AI. And we have developed a platform that is, of course, based on an image management system, but as you can see, covers several other domains of expertise that go well beyond just the AI, because while the AI is key, it's only one component, making it usable and really value add for laboratories. We have our offices in Orem, Utah, with our European offices in Luxembourg, and we're hovering around 160 team members today. Now, as a company, we aim to make a positive impact in the health of human, animals, and the environment through the use of artificial intelligence. And earlier last year, we made an announcement with Mayo Clinic that they had chosen TechSite to help them advance their vision of digital pathology by developing out a clinical pathology and anatomical pathology platform. And so we are very excited today to have Dr. Pritt with us, who is going to talk to us about their experience with AI in parasitology. So I will go ahead and turn the time over to you, Dr. Pritt.
Well, thank you, Troy, for that great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. I'm going to be talking about the Mayo Clinic experience, as Troy mentioned, and how we transitioned to a digital workflow. And I want to note that I have no disclosures personally or conflicts, but of course, Troy told you Mayo Clinic has formed a partnership with TechSite to co-develop AI algorithms, which we're very excited about. So a little background into why we're even considering AI. Well, I think everyone knows that the morphologic examination of clinical specimens by light microscopy is still very important. It remains the gold standard method for detecting many parasites today. And in the parasitology lab, blood and stool are our primary specimens, but we take everything: urine, skin scrapings, hair, etc. And microscopy is very good if you have skilled, trained microscopists, but it is manual. It is a subjective exam. It requires that high level of training and skill. And if you live in an area that is in a non-endemic setting where you don't see a lot of parasites, that means that many specimens are negative. And this leads to low staff satisfaction when they're mostly looking at negative specimens, challenging and maintaining competency. And if you have high volumes like we do, where you're doing hundreds of stool specimen exams a day, then that can lead to ergonomic issues of sitting at a microscope and the potential to get distracted and miss the positives that are coming through. That's where digitalization and artificial intelligence come in. Pathology and laboratory medicine across the field is undergoing a revolution in digitalization and AI. And this really is transforming our practice in a positive way. Anything that is an image, including glass slides, can be digitalized for subsequent analysis. And that analysis, very valuably, can include artificial intelligence applied to that digital image, especially when that algorithm has been well trained to find objects of interest, which in our case is parasites, but could also be any infectious microorganism in any type of preparation that could be digitalized. Now, there's a lot of advantages to this. This could allow us to screen out negatives. That was our primary interest when we implemented TechSite AI, and it definitely has fulfilled that promise. And I will tell you more about our results later. If you screen out your negatives, which in our case is 90 to 95% of all of our tests for stool parasitology exam, then that allows our highly trained personnel to focus on what's really interesting, the positive or suspicious findings. If you're using a good AI system, it also has the potential to decrease your turnaround time, increase your sensitivity. The AI algorithms don't get tired, they don't get distracted, and so they may find the rare positives that could be missed by a human. They could also, digitalization and AI could also facilitate teleparasitology. This could allow us to expand diagnostic expertise to areas where local expertise is not present. It's great for teaching, and maybe someday it will allow our technologists to work from home, although we're not encouraging that at this time, but I think that there is that potential and also the demand from some of our workforce. Now, there are considerations. If you are going to bring in digitalization and AI, you obviously need to purchase a slide scanner. You need to have the software that you're using, and those have costs and per capital equipment expenses associated with them. The system at this point needs to be validated as a laboratory developed test, because in the United States, there are none that are FDA approved or cleared for in vitro diagnostic use. And when you implement digitalization and AI, you usually just can't bring it right in and take it off the shelf and start using it. You have to modify your processes to really work well to get the most out of AI. And you never want to automate or apply AI to a poor process. So you also may want to take that opportunity to see if you can improve your existing processes before implementing a new workflow. Now, I'm going to use stool parasitology as an example, but keep in mind that this could be applied to other types of preparations. We're using TechSite AI in our laboratory for bacteriology gram stain exams as well. But let's talk about the conventional O&P exam, the ova and parasite exam. It is comprised of two important parts. They're not always done, but in the United States, if you are accredited through the College of American Pathologists, you need to do both parts. That includes a concentrated wet mount examination for helminth eggs and protozoa, and then a permanently stained preparation looking for protozoa. The permanently stained preparation typically is made from unconcentrated stool, and then it's stained with a permanent stain such as trichrome or iron hematoxylin. We use trichrome in my laboratory. Now, we knew that there was a new system available. I had the opportunity to read this paper in depth by my colleagues at ARUP, by Matheson, Couturier, and all. They are the group that applied their expertise to develop the algorithm used in the TechSite system for detecting intestinal protozoa in trichrome stained stool specimens. They're excellent parasitologists that I have a high degree of trust in. And so I was very interested to see that they had helped design with TechSite this deep convolutional neural network for detecting protozoa in these trichrome stained stool specimens. The algorithm detects and identifies multiple different types of protozoa. It was optimized for high sensitivity, meaning it's going to detect things. It may overcall potential parasites, but then the technologist uses it as a tool to determine if there truly is something there. So the negative predictive value is very high, which is important. You don't want it to miss any potential parasites. And it was trained on over 1,300 to over 23,500 exemplars per class of organism. A class may be Giardia or Entamoeba histolytica, for example. So it was trained on a very high number of exemplars. And the positive and negative slide agreement with conventional microscopy was 98 to 99%. So excellent positive and negative agreement. And they found analytical sensitivity was very good. In fact, it was greater than manual examination. So I decided to review this in my laboratory, do a full evaluation, and then we proceeded to implementation. The way that this system works, as I mentioned earlier, is you first have to prepare your slides, stain them, cover slip them, and then scan them. That's the digitalization component. And then the digitalized images are analyzed by the AI software system that then assists the technologists in their interpretation. This is an example of what the interface looks like. You can see that multiple little thumbnail images, in this case of Dientamoeba fragilis, are presented to the viewer, who is the skilled trained technologist. The software searches through the matrix of material, which in this case is stool. It looks for these objects of interest it had been trained to find. They're grouped into suggested categories, so it's very helpful and easy to use. They're presented to the laboratory technologist for analysis and review. And then the technologist can click on a box if they agree with that interpretation, and then that could be transferred into the laboratory information system, which is what we're doing at Mayo. I will note that negative specimens can be reviewed digitally and signed out if the technologist feels comfortable doing so, but all positive or questionable results are manually reviewed. And that's how we are doing it in my laboratory and how it's being widely adopted. So let me tell you about how we've been using this at Mayo Clinic and how we approach this whole process. So first, preparing for our digitalization journey, we evaluated two commercially available systems, including the TechSite system. We were very impressed with the TechSite system, so we selected that out of the two that we evaluated. And we purchased a scanner for digitalizing our slides, and we went with the Hamamatsu Nano Zoomer 360, and they work well with TechSite. There are other scanner options as well. So this is the Hamamatsu scanner we're using. What we liked, being a high volume laboratory, is that this has the potential to accommodate those high volumes. It's a freestanding standing scanner. You can see it's rather large, so you need to have the space in your laboratory for this. It captures images at 40x dry, but digital zooms to 1000x, so you get that nice high resolution. Importantly for us, it reads barcodes and communicates bidirectionally with our laboratory information system. Having that transfer of information with barcode reading was very important to us in a high volume clinical laboratory. Also, what was very important is the scanner self-adjusts focus points. One of the other system we had looked at, a technologist had to manually go in and refocus every so many slides, and that wouldn't be really amenable to our high workflow to have someone at hand to keep refocusing. So we really appreciated that. And this scanner can do up to 360 slides at a time for scanning. So this could be done the night before, so that when your technologists come in the next morning, all the slides are ready and available to be read. We did need to adjust our workflows, of course. With this, we had to accommodate the scanning time. We also had to look at how our slides were made. And importantly, we had to make the slides thin and have a monolayer. The slides are scanned in X and Y axes, but there's not a Z plane focus. A Z plane is when you're focusing up and down. It's possible, but it takes up a lot of memory and it's very time consuming. And this system is trained on just X and Y axes. But that means you have to have a thin monolayer. Yet by making the specimen relatively thin, there was a concern that we would dilute the specimen out too much and lose sensitivity. And so we went with using the concentrate for our permanently stained preparations, which actually worked out very well. So you can see the slides I'm showing you here. This is the thickness that we now use. You can see that it's relatively thin, and we've trained all of our laboratory assistants to make this in a consistent manner. The other thing we had to do is change our barcodes. Our existing barcodes were a little large. They hung over the slide. Something as simple as that is a problem because the barcode labels can't overhang if you're going to be scanning them in. They'd get stuck in the scanner. And we had to use the right type of barcode so it could be read by the barcode reader with the scanner. So there were a number of different things that we had to consider. We also had to permanently mount our slides. We used to just put a drop of mineral oil on the slide, put a cover slip over it, and go. But then that meant the cover slip could move around while being scanned. So we needed to use a permanent mounting medium. And we decided if we were going to do that, we probably should just look at an automated cover slipper rather than just having each technologist. They used to just put a drop of oil on the slide and look at the slides as they went. It was in their workflow. But now we had to cover slip all of the slides up front and put them into the scanner. This was a perfect opportunity for automation. We evaluated 2 different automatic cover slippers. We ended up using one made by Leica, which you can see here on the image on the right. The right-hand portion of the image is our stainer that we already used in the laboratory. So we have an automated stainer. Again, we do 200 or more slides a day. So this is very helpful for us. And the cover slipper articulates onto the stainer. So you can see in this image here how the stain, as the slides go through the stain, when they make it to the very end, they then just get transferred over to the cover slipper and automatically cover slipped. So that was also just a nice workflow change for us. We also decided to use this as an opportunity to simplify our processes. Since we were making so many changes, we figured this is a good time to re-examine everything. We consolidated to a single version of the trichrome stain. We already use EcoFix with EcoStain, and we decided to see if the EcoStain would also work well with the 2-vial fixative PVA SAF, and it worked really well. So we did that validation. We're now just using the EcoStain, a modified version of the trichrome stain. We also decided to limit the types of acceptable preservatives. We stopped accepting PVA with heavy metals in it, and that was a good step for us as well. These are all the things we had to do before we even validated the AI algorithm. So all of these previous changes, the cover slipping, the mounting media, use of a single stain, those were all individual validations. We also had to compare the unconcentrated thick specimen to the concentrated thinner specimen to make sure we didn't lose sensitivity, especially if the slides had to be read manually if the scanner went down for any reason. And we found that we gained sensitivity with the thin concentrated method. So we felt very good going into this process. Now we had to validate the use of the algorithm. We, as a laboratory developed test, we validated it completely, including evaluation of accuracy, precision, and limit of detection. And I'll show you some of our results here. We started with accuracy. We had 142 stool specimens that included positives representing all of the different classes that are identifiable with the TechSite algorithm. And we had negatives. They were all reviewed by the TechSite algorithm and manually in a blinded fashion by a number of different technologists who were all trained and competent to be reading out these specimens. And ended up being quite a number, and we had them read by multiple technologists. So this was a pretty big undertaking. Well, Here is our comparison, and you can see that there are 82 positives by manual, 83 by AI. So the AI actually found an additional positive that had been missed by manual review with light microscopy. And we went back and re-reviewed that one that was not identified initially, and it was a true positive. There were 60 negative versus 59. That's understandable. Also, the AI algorithm detected more white blood cells and more red blood cells than the manual result. And again, these were all confirmed positives. And I'll repeat what I said earlier. Our technologists in the TechSite process review all positives to confirm the results, and that's our workflow to this day. So we were very encouraged by this. The algorithm's doing as good or better than manual microscopic review. We then did analytical sensitivity. We had 3 positive specimens that contained a range of commonly seen parasites, and we did twofold dilutions, 1-to-1 all the way down to 1-to-128. We made 6 slides from each dilution, so 144 total slides, and then we reviewed all of them in a blinded manner, again by conventional light microscopy versus AI assisted microscopy. And the AI algorithm provided equal or improved sensitivity for each specimen. And in fact, in each case, we were able to go down multiple dilutions with AI and still find parasites. The algorithm still identified parasites that were true parasites long after manual microscopy ceased to identify parasites. So the AI algorithm is more sensitive than manual microscopy, which was very encouraging. So we have implemented this. We have been using this algorithm in our laboratory for more than a year now. It has been a game changer for us. It's been very positive. Our laboratory staff have been involved in the process from evaluation to validation to implementation. They've presented their results to multiple other groups. So I think they have a lot of pride in the work that they did, and it's been very well accepted. But we did ask the question of how do we measure success? And we had decided early on that we were going to keep track of a number of different aspects so that we could see the impact that AI had on our laboratory. So one of the first things we looked at was turnaround time. And you could see that these gray bars, this represents our total volume. That was going up and up and up after the pandemic. Some labs stopped doing ova parasite exam and started sending it to us. Unfortunately, as our volumes went up, our turnaround time, as shown by this green line, also went up. And it got to a point that we really considered unreasonable. It was about a 2-week turnaround time, which is really not clinically helpful. And we always pride ourselves at keeping our turnaround time down to 1 or 2 days. This was very demoralizing for our staff. So we implemented the deep neural network, the TechSite algorithm, here where the red arrow is shown. And immediately we had a drop, even though we had only implemented it with a couple of super users. And then we slowly rolled it out to the rest of the laboratory. And look at this dramatic drop. I will call your attention to the gray bars in the background. They remain high. Our volumes have not gone down, and yet our turnaround time is now down to about the 2-day mark, which is where we want it to be. We have since followed it up, and it remains around 2 days. So this is sustained improvement. We also looked at our positivity rate measured in set time periods before and after implementation. So from August 1st to April 30th in 2022, and then 2023, 2024, we went from 3% up to 5.28% positivity. And now that we're in our summer season, we're actually at more about 6% positivity. But regardless, I think it's very important to note that our positives went up. This is improving patient care. And again, these are confirmed positives. The technologists went back and confirmed that these are real. So better for patient care. And then our staff satisfaction improved across almost all of the metrics we looked at as well. Physical demand, pre and post implementation went down, time pressure went down, the difficulty of work went down. I love this one, the performance of the satisfaction of just performance almost doubled. Job satisfaction went up and ergonomic strain went down. The only one that went up slightly, mental demand, went from below 60% to about 65%. And I think that was just the early period when our technologists were learning a new system. So the last thing we measured was capacity. That always comes up when people ask you how many technologists is this going to allow me to have to do other tasks. Um, so I should say that all of our technologists that the time that we freed up, those technologists are now doing other things in the laboratory that they enjoy doing. So this was a real win for us, and the laboratory was also short-staffed. So we did not ever think of this as something of how we were going to justify letting people go. There was more than enough work to go around. So this has been a win for us. Our technologist review of the trichrome stain slides went from 4 minutes on average down to 1.5 minutes. And if you actually look at the negative specimens, the ones that were clearly negative, which was about 90% of the cases, that went from 5 minutes down to 30 seconds. And remember, 90% of our cases are negative. So if you can go from 5 minutes to 30 seconds and just review those and quickly sign those out as negative, that's a huge win. That was a 90% reduction. So this has been very positive for us. We are going to be expanding our use of AI in the laboratory. And so stay tuned for more. But at this point, I will stop and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Pritt, for that brief yet very information-rich presentation. We highly value the insight that real-world case studies are able to bring us. We do actually have some questions from our attendees. Stan asked, how do your local DOH and CLIA look at screening out negatives by AI, especially given it being considered an LDT and the upcoming changes with LDTs?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we talked to all of our regulatory group here at Mayo Clinic, and there's a couple things that are key about this. First of all, we've validated this as if it was a laboratory developed test or laboratory developed method, but it was completed and it's marketed by TechSite. So it's not something we created in the laboratory, and it is part of our OVA and parasite exam. So it's a tool. It's not a standalone test. In fact, it wouldn't it, that's not the way it's designed. It's designed to be a tool for our technologists. So it actually fits into our overall OVA and parasite exam test. And that's considered a conventional method. We also have accreditation through New York State. So they came and inspected us and asked a lot of questions about this method. We also just underwent our CAP inspection, and they also looked at our validation records, and we received full accreditation. But I do think that is something to consider for laboratories that may be considering bringing in making their own software systems. Then you have to worry about software as a medical device. We purchased this from TechSite to use, and so we weren't ultimately responsible. What we are responsible for, obviously, is the quality and performance of this test as part of our workflow, and we have that covered.
Wonderful, thanks. Bob asked, was the change to monolayer preparation necessary for the Hamamatsu scanner or for TechSite AI or both?
Good question. It's actually both. Any scanner is going to do better if you're just doing an X and Y axis, if you have a thin monolayer. That's really the goal if you're going to be scanning any type of liquid type based or semi-liquid based type specimen. So the scanner, since it wasn't doing the Z plane, it's just doing X and Y, and it has to find that focal plane so it can scan in the right frame in focus. So that's the first part, is the scanner needs a more thin monolayer in order to be able to scan in focus. But then also the algorithm, the TechSite algorithm also has been trained on a thin monolayer. And if the specimen is thick and clumpy and not even, the algorithm may struggle with trying to find parasites. So it's really both. You want to optimize your entire process.
For sure. Kitty asked, what LIS systems interface with TechSite? I can answer the first part, and then maybe you can talk about your implementation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Currently, we have an open API, short. It's fully documented and even has tools that help IT departments be able to get any information that's on our system back into the LIS.
Yeah, I'll add, Troy. So we use soft mic So SOFT is the LIS, and then there are different modules, and MIC, or microbiology, is the module we use in the parasitology laboratory. We had to work with our own IT people to have it integrated. And not everyone has it integrated. I don't believe that ARUP does. But we decided that that was important due to our volumes, and it was really helpful for our technologists to just be able to click the button on the parasites that they agreed with and then transfer those results into the LIS, and then they could finalize it from there rather than manually enter it,
Yeah,
but not
and
a requirement to use the system.
exactly. And via the open API, it is compatible with all LIS systems. Martin asks, how do you perform daily QC on the AI system?
Great question. We actually have a series of 4 different slides that we run every day that serve different functions. And I'll try to remember all 4 of them. We have a positive and negative control, and they go through the entire slide process. Um, I'm blanking on one, but the other one that we also use as a positive control is the same slide that has already been stained, and that is what we call a drift control. And we scan that every day, and it has a certain quantity of parasites on it. We picked something like Giardia that's straightforward, so not an ambiguous identification, and that we have an expected amount of Giardia we expect to be detected. So the positive and negative control goes through the full staining process that's made every day with the same batch of stain. So it goes through the cover slipping, the entire process. But then we also have the positive control for drift, which is the same slide that we scan and analyze over and over again every day, and we expect a certain quantity of Giardia parasites to be detected. We would worry if, for example, there were only 5 parasites detected the first day and then 100 the next day. That would probably get our attention. It would be outside of our acceptance range. So that allows us to show that the scanner is functioning correctly and that the algorithm is still getting the same number of organisms in about the same range. Oh, the other control we do is actually not a control. It's part of our quality system, is we periodically pull negative specimens to review, just to make sure that we're not missing any positives, that the TechSite algorithm's not missing any. And they're always negative. The system's never missed any, to our knowledge.
Nice, thanks. Susan asked, how did it work with slides that have multiple parasites seen? Also, did it detect some parasites such as Cyclospora that's normally not detected with the Tricrhome stain? And maybe you can touch on the other stains that we're developing, because there are several other questions that touch on the other stains.
Sure. Well, I will say it does very well with multiple different parasites because it puts them into these different categories. So it'll show you all the things it thinks are Giardia, and then Dientamoeba fragilis, whatever else is present. And then the thumbnails are presented to the technologist. The technologist reviews them. Again, remember, it's designed for sensitivity, but not, it may overcall things. It's going to find things and present them. It may present a couple examples of something it calls blastocystis. The technologist usually can look at it quickly and say, no, that's not blastocystis. So to answer the first question, it's excellent at looking for all the different types of parasites because it analyzes for each of them separately. But there are some categories that clumps together because there are parasites that look very similar. So it may say Dientamoeba fragilis endolema exnana / or it may have an Entamoeba species rather than a specific type of species like Entamoeba histolytica / Entamoeba dispar. And that's understandable. Human technologists have challenges with some of these parasites as well. That's one of the reasons why we always pull every single positive and have them manually reviewed to confirm the identification of the parasites that are found. Regarding Cyclospora, it's very good at finding Cyclospora on the trichrome stain. In fact, it's pretty much equivalent to our modified safranin stain that we do for Cyclospora. So we're actually now considering if we're even going to start doing special stains. But Troy, maybe you want to mention what those other stains are that you're looking at. I'm aware of some for acid-fast bacilli, but I don't know if you're also doing one for like a modified acid-fast for the coccidia.
Yeah, we are. We currently have actually a release of our software that works with modified acid fast. And someone else actually asked the question for wet mount, and we do have wet mount iodine preparation available as well. And for the actual organisms that we detect, you can easily go to the website and it's all there.
And what you mentioned, Troy, about the wet prep with iodine is really good. We're getting that in as soon as we can, and we are going to validate that. That way our entire system will be run through the TechSite AI deep neural network, which I think will be a real improvement. Then we'll have to ask, do we have microscopes at every bench, or do we just have a few microscopes here and there? Now we do 200 specimens a day with 5% positive. That we're still going to need our microscopes. We're not giving them up, but we won't have our technologists looking at the wet preps all by microscopy anymore. They'll be digitalized. So it'll be interesting as we change. In order to guarantee success, I think it's very important to have all of your staff engaged in this process, which is what we did. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so readily accepted by our staff.
Yeah, thanks. And let's see, Sharon asks, what is the rapid drying mounting medium used when cover slipping?
I am not familiar with the actual rapid mounting media, but they do exist. We used to use a permamount, which would take several days to be actually well dried. But in anatomic pathology, they use that. Of course, they mount all their slides and they dry pretty quickly. So the Aperio stain or the Leica stainer that we used, the cover slipper came with a mounting media. So it's probably you could find out what it is online. Sorry, I don't have it.
Not a problem. Melissa asks, how has it performed with proficiency testing?
Well, we do our own internal proficiency testing, but we also have external quality assessment. We enroll in the CAP's proficiency tests. At this time, we cannot run it on the TechSite algorithm because the slides are too thick and they are not made with concentrated stool. So they are not the same system, which is why we also do our own internal evaluation. So we do both. We're testing our manual microscopy skills, and then we're also testing our digitalization AI system at the same time, or separately.
We've got time for one more question. I'm not sure if you would be the person to answer this, or maybe Angela. Or Rumi asked, thank you so much for this presentation. It was enlightening. I'd like to know if you witnessed similar success with bacteriology.
Oh, I could mention, yes, we did. I'm as the as the chair for the Division of Microbiology in general, I'm aware of the different uses. We have now implemented TechSite's AI system in bacteriology for gram stains for multiple different sources, including sterile body fluids and respiratory. And it is going very well, and it is finding bacteria that had been missed by our technologists. So again, it is increasing our sensitivity. And I do know that other people who have implemented the TechSite systems have also noted that increase in sensitivity. So I think that's going to be something across the board we're going to see with AI for the reasons I mentioned earlier. AI doesn't get tired, it doesn't get distracted, it doesn't pause to pick up the phone and forget where they were in the screening process. So it's going to be more consistent.
Wonderful, thanks. Listen, we've got a whole lot of questions. What I would suggest is we promise to get back to everyone who has asked questions today. We will follow up immediately with those questions. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar with Dr. Pritt, and especially Dr. Pritt for the time that you've given us today. Anyone who has signed up, thanks. Anyone who has signed up for this will get the recording afterwards. We'll make that available and send that to you. So without further ado, we would again like to thank everyone and encourage you all to look more into this if you're interested in contact us if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.